Alright, Kelly. So, 7 chords. Something we spent a long time talking about today, and we're going to learn a bunch of them. Let's group it differently than we did during the lesson. Let's start with first position, and then we'll move around. So we're going to go alphabetically. No, scratch that. Starting with bar chords, we'll do it the way we did it. So we realized that all of our common bar chords, we can play every major and minor chord, just knowing E shapes, G and G minor, C and C minor, just thinking about the shapes of A chords and C chords, or excuse me, A chords and G chords. So let's just look at that G chord here, my E shape. If I want to make that G7, I take my pinky off, and it takes on that crunchy chord color. What happened is we changed an octave to adding a flat 7. So not the regular 7 or the dominant 7, but the flat 7. Like if you were thinking about Mixolydian, it's got flat 7s in it. Like if I was like playing C Mixolydian here, I'm going, or G Mixolydian, I'm going, and there it is, as opposed to, then there I was playing fingering too. And that's where we actually learned G Mixolydian while we're at it. So there's your 7th chord. And of course a minor 7 chord then would just be minor and 7. So there's a 7 chord using an E7 shape, and then a minor 7 chord using an E minor with a 7th. Another way to play that minor 7 chord is to throw your middle finger on the bass note, skip a string, and bar with your ring finger, and we get this nice voicing of that chord that's when we hear a lot in like bossa nova music. So there's that. So right now we just discussed E-shape chords. And when we get back to this in first position, we'll talk about adding the 7th in another place. Maybe pause and just get good at those, huh? Alright, now we're going to spend a bunch of time doing things that are 5th string and down, as a number of the chords we're about to learn don't really work that well phrased off the 6th string. There's ways to do them, and we may learn them, but first and foremost we're going to focus on how to do them as variations on A shapes. So, here's me playing C. We played C so much, let's just go to D. There's D. Here's D7. I'm using an A7 shape, which A7 looks like this. You take off the middle one. So there's that. Then if I go D minor 7, it's just to take the pinky off thing. So there's D7. It's got that in it. And then D minor 7. Same exact thing, just with minor chords. So then it turned out that there's this other chord color, major 7. And it would seem like this chord would just be called major 7. But it's not. It's called D7. D7 versus D major 7. So if we look at what happened when we switched to D7, we were going adding a flat 7th. What if we added a regular 7th instead? We get that major 7th tone, which is really distinctive. If we just played those two notes, it sounds terrible, but we add the like this. So regular 7th chords, crunchy. Major 7th chords, angelic, thing like that. And then we can really hear a flat 7 versus a regular 7 or a dominant 7. Cool. So just rounding out what we just talked about. D7, D major 7, D minor, D minor 7. Cool. So let's make that grouping one stop work with that. Nice. So on the back end of these chords, if we went back to first position and played a C, and then put our pinky on the 3rd string, that's a C7 chord, which we're going to get to in first position. But it's also a movable chord, where if we just don't hit the E strings, it's movable. So, in our D world here, we've been going D, D7, and this is back behind it, so to speak, or literally. And if we notice, they both have that 7th. They're just different voicings of the same chord, and they fit together together that way in every key. It's like D, D7, D, D7, and it's back behind. So there's a C7 movable chord. Okay, now ninth chord. We're going to start with that same shape, except I'm going to use my strong fingers for those 3 notes, and then I'm going to bar with my ring finger. So it sounds like that. And like we were saying, this can be a really jazzy chord, or it's like every funk song ever is a ninth chord. And that is a type of 7th chord. It's still got that flat 7th in it. We just took here this had the root on the 2nd string, a D, and then we just went, that's what changed about the chord. And what we mean by ninth is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I was just playing the major scale there using number 1 shape. So when people say ninth, they mean exactly that. They mean not D, not right here, but D up here. You know, 1, 2, 3, 4. And I meant to say E there. Excuse me, not E here, but E up here. Ninth chord. And that's a good one. And, you know, so mess with that a little bit. And it is a type of 7th chord. While we're on the subject, the only non-7th chord that we're going to learn is a 6th chord. It's just because it's so similar to this shape. What you do is you move your ring finger so that it's barring 2 strings, not 3 strings. And then you make your first finger bar. So I'm going 5, 4, 4, 5, 5. And it sounds like that, featuring a 6th. And that's how a 6 looks, not a 3rd, but a 6. And that's what we're adding. And this is a 6th chord. A D6 chord. An E6 chord. An E9 chord. An E7 chord. An E7 chord. An E7, a G. Cool, so there we go. So there's a grouping that we talked about. And those are all the movable chords that we discussed. So right around 7:30 in your video, let's move back to first position. A7. What we're going to be doing is taking an A chord and putting a G into it. So that's either this one that we've already been using, movable, or we either use these 2 fingers or these 2 fingers, depending on the context, but not just take the middle one off, since that really disqualifies that finger from availability. And it would depend on what you're doing. Cool, so that's A7. And A minor 7, same exact thing. We've already been using that as a movable chord. B7 is the one that I was talking about, like every Johnny Cash Beatles song that's in E has that one in it, because it's B is a bar chord, and they're avoiding playing bar chords on purpose. So here I am skipping the 6th string. Here's my B. 1, 2, 1, 2. Open B string 2. Cool. And then C7 is a chord we already learned as a movable shape. There it is. It's a C chord with this B flat in it right there. And there's not another good B flat to put in. So there's C7. D7 is like a mirror image of D. And that's D7 here. And we notice that's the same as when we were going D7 chord. Exact same notes. Just up here we get an extra high note, whereas down here we run a substitute there. So D7, D minor 7. D minor 7's like F if you just didn't have any bass notes. Cool. E. Here's an E chord. When we make them into, and this is what we were doing when we were moving our E chords around and taking our pinky off, is the equivalent of taking an E and putting a D in it. So that's one way we can do it. Or we can put it in on the 2nd string, 3rd fret. So, both of them. Or you can make a full-on E chord and just put that one in. So, this is E7, this is E7, this is E7. and why would you use one versus the other? Anytime you put in the lower note chord, it gets all... But if you put it in up here, it's a little more of a thin chord. That doesn't mean that one's better than the other or more useful, it just depends on what you want to hear. And minor sevenths, the same exact thing. So, cool. F is just a bar chord. We're using those same shapes we were just talking about. F. And as advertised, we know we can do this, but now we see we can also do that in our E-shaped chords where we were going. I'm a G. We can put the high note in instead. So F7 is just F7. There's no better way to play it. We're going for that note. If I was just like, it wouldn't really sound like, or it wouldn't sound correct. Cool. G7. Not, but, and my middle finger subconsciously picked up there. You can leave it in, but there's just a lot of songs where you play just this and then end up doing something with your middle finger. But yeah, so like that. It's like a C chord, and then it's spread out. A lot of people's first guitar lessons are C and G7 because they're such easy, similar chords to play. Cool. So we just went A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all the seventh chords. As well as the first position chords and ninth chords and stuff. So there we go. Those are all seventh chords. Enjoy, and I will see you in 3 weeks, sir.